All right, this is video 2 on how to graph logs. So the first step is going to be to rewrite this. So we have to take this and rewrite it as an exponential. Labeling is going to be key. So y inverse equals, the base is 6, so we do 6 to the x. Change sign, change location. Change sign, change location. That is the inverse. Okay? Now, once we have that, we're going to create a t-table. This is just an exponential. So I'm going to create a t-table for this. And then we're just going to do -3 to 3. Type it into the calculator. And look at the table. Now, what you notice very, very quickly, when we look at this one, do you see how pretty much all of these values are the exact same? That means I need to shift my table, okay? This happens sometimes, especially when trying to graph logs, but all of those values being the same, I do not need to try to graph all those values. So I'm gonna start my t-table like at 4. So I'm actually gonna scratch that t-table out, create a new t-table. Remember I told you that you can put whatever values you want to into this. So I'm gonna go 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. So -0.8, 0, 5, 35. All right, and you know what? I'm gonna use 3 as well just to give me one more point. -0.97. Now, please understand something. This is the graph that goes with the exponential, okay? So I do not need to graph the exponential. I'm trying to graph the log. So over here to the side, I'm gonna write y equals log base 6, x plus 1 plus 5, okay? That is what I'm actually trying to graph. Now remember what I said about inverses. Inverses simply means flip your x's and y's. So I'm gonna go to this table, I'm going to flip my x's and y's. So -0.97, 3, -0.8, 4, 0, 5, 5, 6, 35, 7. This is the table you graph. That is the table that goes with the logarithm. This is the table that goes with the exponential. So once I find the table for my exponential, I flip it, and that's going to be the table for the log. Now, let's look at this. So -0.97, +3, -0.8 is at 4, 0 is at 5, 5 is at 6, and then we have one way over here. Now, logarithms have have asymptotes as well. The asymptote of a logarithm is going to be the opposite of that number. So the opposite of that number, which is -1, and it's also going to be vertical. So I'm going to draw a vertical line at -1. All right, so that is my asymptote, opposite of the inside. So it's at -1. So I draw my graph coming up really close to the asymptote, and now it's going to turn and go out that way. Okay, so that is your logarithm. I'm going to do one more practice problem with you. If you think you've got the hang of it, go ahead and try it. But I'm going to do another practice problem with you just so that we know what's going on. So let's try to see if I can find a decent one to do. Sure. We'll do one of these, a natural log. Remember I told you this is log base e, x plus or x minus 1 minus 3. These two things, same exact thing, all right? So let's find the inverse first. Y inverse equals, the base is e, so e to the x. Change sign, change location. +3, +1. All right. T-table. Before I create my t-table this time, I'm going to type it into the calculator and make sure that my values actually work. So e to the x plus 3 and then plus 1. Okay, so there's that. Go to my table. And you can see a lot of the values up top are way too big for me to graph. Now there's some values I can graph right there, starting at -1. So I'm probably going to do values from like -6 to -1, just because those are the ones I can graph. So -6, -5, -4, 2, -1. Fill those values in. Now remember, this is not the graph of my log. This is the graph of the exponential. So I need to flip my t-table. So this is the graph of my log. Flip this over. 1.04, -6. 1.13, -5. 1.36, -4. 2, -3. 3.7, -2. 8.3, -1. All right, so I flip that around. We need to draw our asymptote. Remember I told you the asymptote is the opposite of that, so that means it's going to be +1 and it's vertical. So there we go. Now I'll draw it in. 1.04, -6. 1.13, -5. I know these decimals are really, really bad, but just think, 1.04 just past 1. Most of these problems are just past 1. So 1.36, -4. 2, -3, finally get a little bit of movement out of it. 3.7, -2. 8.3, -1, so somewhere way out there. Okay, so now I can draw this coming up, curling, and it's going to continue to go up and out. So that is the graph of my logarithm. Hopefully you have all the ideas at this point, but basic thing when graphing logs, first step, find the inverse. And the inverse is always going to be an exponential. Do the t-table of the inverse. Step 3, flip the table. In other words, change up your x's and y's, okay? And 4, graph the flip table. All right, and that is how you're going to graph logarithms. There are 4 practice problems. Get those done, and then you're ready for a topic mastery and a test. And this will be the last test before your final exam. All right, guys, good luck.